Hi peeps, welcome to It's Witchcraft, Beltane. If you are new to this observance, this video is intended to give you some jumping off points for connecting with this particular Sabbath. And if you're a long-standing observer of Beltane, this may serve as a refresher course. And of course, I will also be listing some deck recommendations in case you want to bring in your tarot and oracle work to this particular Sabbath, and you would like some inspiration for which decks to pull off the shelf. So Beltane is a fire Sabbath. There are very many varying views on pronunciation. I say Beltane, you can also pronounce it Beltiana. There are other options for pronunciation for you. But particularly here, we are working with a fire Sabbath. It is one of 4 fire Sabbaths, and because of its juxtaposition on the Wheel of the Year, its polarity to Samhain, it is a very powerful Sabbath for ancestral work. It is a purifying Sabbath. It is also a powerful Sabbath for fertility, sexuality, abundance, creativity. We're really honoring, for some pagan individuals, this is an honoring of the May Queen defeating the Winter Queen. For others of us, this is a Sabbath that is very much about the union between the goddess and the green man. Or for me personally, I work with the horned god, the witch's devil, Cernunnos here, as representative of the sacred masculine principle. But it's a powerful Sabbath for abundance, fertility, creativity, sexuality, and sensuality. It's all about that activation that fire provides. It is also a Sabbath that has its roots in the purification aspect of working with the element of fire. And it's a wonderful Sabbath to work protection magic and to work any form of spell crafting around abundance or building from a creative or fertile space. But the protection magic component and the powerful threshold magic, the liminal space that this Sabbath provides, makes it a beautiful Sabbath to offer gifts to our beloved dead and ancestors, to speak with them, to commune with them, to communicate with them, and to ask for their assistance if we require that as well. It is such a beautiful, lusty Sabbath. It is very sensual in its essence. And I work personally with Venus, with Aphrodite, and with Isis for this Sabbath. Some years I will also, I just grabbed my notes, guys. Some years I will also work with Isis and Osiris, if that feels appropriate. The union and the remembering that happens in their marriage, if you will, their sacred marriage. But over the last few years, I've really connected with Venus. And if you observe in my community work, I've entitled this Sabbath Hawthorn, Honey, and Rose, because I also love the lustiness and the sacred sexuality of the Magdalene, the lineage of the Melusine, and the sacred prostitute, and honoring her, supplicating her, worshiping her always feels very appropriate to me for this Sabbath. I personally like to wear ribbons in my hair in the days preceding Beltane, the few days preceding Beltane. I have one in my hair today. And particularly on the Sabbath of Beltane itself, I like to wear ribbons in my hair, representative of the ribbons that would be wrapped around the maypole for dancing. And of course, there is within the history of Beltane the lineage of the May Queen as well. And again, we're connecting into that fertile aspect of sexuality and beauty as well. So there's a lot of joy, energy raising, ecstasy, romance, union, and sacred sexuality that we get to explore and play with for this particular Sabbath. And of course, with this being a Sabbath that is honoring the element of fire, if it is accessible for you to light a candle or to sit outside around a bonfire or a fire pit for this Sabbath, that's a wonderful way to connect in with the activation and the purification of this Sabbat. Now, as far as stones go, I like to work with stones from the land for this Sabbat particularly, but also I like to work with selenite because of its purification. I like to work with carnelian for its connection to fire and the sun. This is also a Sabbat where we do connect in with the, I consider it the masculine principle of the sun, but you can connect with whatever aspect of the sun and its warmth and light and the vitality it brings us on this Sabbath as well. But I always feel that carnelian is very representative of the sun's energy for me. So I like to work with carnelian for this Sabbath. I also love red jasper for this particular Sabbath and clear quartz, but I'm a quartz girly anyhow, so I tend to bring some form of quartz into any of my Sabbath workings. Again, I honor and observe and work with Venus, particularly for this Sabbath, and so I have a statue of her on my altar and will be leaving offerings for her. Today, I'm recording on a Tuesday. The Beltane in 2025 is on Thursday this year, so the Sabbath is observed typically on May 1st, but anywhere from May 1st to May 5th. But in the 2 days preceding Beltane, I like to leave offerings out for Venus. And then on Beltane itself, I like to leave offerings for her, for the horned god, for the green man. And I also like to leave offerings for my grandparents particularly. I'm very connected to my matrilineal grandmother and grandfather, and so I like to have offerings there for them. If you are working from more of a shamanic perspective, the beaver moon is an energy that is near the Sabbath of Beltane, and so I like to work with beaver as a spirit animal guide. I also tend to like to work with heron. Blue heron, doves are another energy you can connect with here, as well as the energy of eagle for this particular Sabbath. Those are wonderful spirit animal guide energies to bring in. And from a color perspective, I really like to work with greens, with warm reds, with pinks, with kind of a sky blue, and I like to work with white. And from a flower perspective, I love to work with roses, with peonies, and any white flower that I might find at the market or that calls to me from that perspective. If you are in New England, up north, daffodils are still out this time of year, as well as sometimes we have lilacs around this time of year. And so lilacs particularly have an association with my childhood and in spring. So I like to bring that into my, my work with Beltane. The offering component, if you are sitting with, well, what do I offer, or how do I craft an offering? I find that something personal and something that feels special to you is a beautiful offering. So for me, I like to leave Venus an offering of Prosecco or mead, or a pink toned wine. Also, I find that the horned god prefers more of like a bourbon whiskey, something that's warm or red in its tonality, and I like to leave that as an offering. But also, over the years, I've found that offerings of chamomile tea or a rose hip tea are very well received by the goddess and the god. And when it comes to my ancestors, I have particular associations with my grandmother and grandfather, and so I make offerings associated with that for them. Both of my grandparents collected minerals and crystals, believe it or not. And so I like to leave an offering of crystals for them, and I have some personal offerings that I will leave for them as well. In the title for the community observance that I host, I do have honey, because I think honey is indicative of bees, the magic of the hive. It welcomes in the energy of the Magdalene and the Melusine, and the order of the sacred prostitute, the Heroduli. So I love to have honey out as an offering as well. And as far as smoke, I like to work with, this year, dragon's blood, but typically I love to burn Palo Santo for this particular Sabbath, because I like the way that the scent just kind of fills the air, and there's a little bit of a mystery to that incense and that burn. And so I really enjoy working with that for Beltane in general as well. And you can see from everything that I've mentioned, you don't need to go out and make a big investment. You don't even need a statue of any goddess or god you're working with. You can find something in the natural world that's representative of them, ask permission from the land to bring that home and allow that to be representative of the deity that you're working with and that you are making offering to for this Sabbath. But this is such a beautiful Sabbath for offerings. I feel like it's just in alignment with the abundance, with the fertility, with the growth of this particular Sabbath. And you will find that connecting in with that aspect of abundance, of worthiness, of celebration, and the physicality of your body is a wonderful way to connect with Beltane. And I wanted to speak here, especially for witches or individuals who are connecting with a pagan or left-hand path around the sexuality component of this particular Sabbath. It is a very real part of this observance. And sometimes when we have religious trauma, it can feel dirty or wrong, or we can feel uncomfortable with exploring the sexuality component of this particular Sabbath. However, it is essential in the story of the goddess, and it is essential from a perspective of welcoming in rebirth, which is also a theme for this Sabbath. So if you find you struggle with your body, with the aspect of exploring and embracing sensuality or sexuality, this is a wonderful Sabbath for healing around that. And I would encourage crafting an altar, venerating and honoring your physicality, your sacred sexuality, and the lust of the goddess as she unites with the masculine principle, with the god for this particular Sabbath. And I want to affirm for you that venerating that through altar work and ritual connection is a way of healing, wounding around sexuality. And also, you can explore sexuality and sensuality from a solitary perspective. You don't need to bring in a partner or feel like you have to connect in a way with other human individuals in observance in a way that would lead you to feel unsafe. There are wonderful ways to connect from a solitary perspective to sexuality and sensuality, this observance. And I think the most impactful way is enjoying the skin you're in. So finding ways to experience being present in your body, dancing, celebrating your physical body, as well as allowing yourself to experience the raising of energy and releasing of energy in your physical body, if that feels appropriate and right for you, is very acceptable. It's a beautiful way of honoring the divine within yourself and the divine in your practice. And if you're looking for some jumping off points on that, Gabby Herstick has a book called Sacred Sex that provides some opportunity for real healing of wounds around trauma when it comes to your physical body and sexuality, but also ways of observing and working with the goddess, seen through the lens of Venus for the most part in that particular book, that can bring a real sense of reverence, of joy, and of appreciating and celebrating the physical human experience. And when we talk about sensuality and sexuality, it doesn't have to be only about the penetrative act of sex. Sensuality and sexuality is a living experience, and it doesn't always have to do with what we think of traditionally as what happens in the bedroom from a Christian religious standpoint. So ways that you can connect in with the sensual and sexual component of Beltane can be slowing down and not scrolling or doing anything while you enjoy your morning cup of tea or coffee, but just enjoying the experience. Making time to appreciate the senses as you move through the day. Maybe there's a particular fragrance you want to wear, or a specific place in your garden or backyard you want to just take a few moments to give yourself over to the full pleasure of the scent of a space. Perhaps there is a really delicious meal you want to make, and give yourself permission to enjoy it with no guilt attached, and enjoy the different tastes and smells and textures of that meal. You can take portions of that meal and leave that as an offering for the goddess. If you deal with trauma around your physicality and your body, Venus and Lilith are a wonderful deity to work with, and the witch's devil also provides an opportunity for healing from the masculine deity perspective. And so I encourage you to explore those options. But this is a Sabbath that we don't want to take away from the lusty energy around, but really surrender to that fully and enjoy the ecstasy of that exploration for ourselves, with ourselves. And if we wish to bring in other energies for that experience, that's completely up to us, but it's not required. It's more about enjoying the sensuality of your own essence as it is housed in a physical body and as you move through the human experience. And Venus and Lilith and the goddess Babylon as well are more than happy to hold that space, to walk with you and to provide insight and healing there. So that being said, I would encourage you to do card pulls around sensuality, around abundance, around fertility and creativity, and your spellcrafting can be focused around that as well. Now, as far as decks that I would recommend you work with, for the Sabbath of Beltane, I really like to work with the Magick of You Oracle. This year, I have a focus on the Softest Shade Oracle. Coastal Curiosities and the Earthbound Oracle are also wonderful options. Because this is a Sabbath that is connected to the Fae, I like to work with the Faeries Oracle, the Heart of Faeries Oracle. The Night Faeries Oracle by Paolo Barbieri is another wonderful option. I like to work with Tarot of the Huntress. The Folkloric Forest Tarot is another wonderful option. The Peculiar Pathways Tarot, the Antique Anatomy Tarot, the Wild Unknown Tarot, another great option. The Woodland Wardens Oracle. The Queen Mab Oracle is another great choice for this particular Sabbath. I'm just looking around so I don't forget anyone that I want to mention. The Witch Sister Tarot, Journey into the Hidden Realms Tarot. The Shadowscapes Tarot is another wonderful option. The Caitlin McCarthy Tarot, the Star Spinner Tarot, and the Hush Tarot are also great options. Now, my two long-standing personal favorites for Beltane are Tarot of Vampires, due to its lusty occult tradition. And the artwork for me personally is just pure sensual abandon and hedonism. But also Tierra May's Ritual Tarot is another standby for me. Since I received that deck from a viewer years ago, I've always worked with that deck on Beltane personally for myself. And finally, if I haven't said it already, I would recommend the Archetypes Oracle by Kim Krans. It's a wonderful way to tap into the predominant myth that you're working with for this particular Sabbath. But really, any tarot and oracle deck that speak to lusty reverence, the joy of living a full-bodied human experience, and the mystery of the sacred union within occult traditions, the alchemy, if you will, are wonderful decks to connect with for this particular Sabbath. Let me just see if I've said everything. Oh, there was one thing I noted that I had read from a fellow witch on Instagram. And if I remember, I will put her her Instagram account information in the description box below, because I want to make sure I credit her. She had said that ancestors left shiny things on the edge of the forest as protective magic, but also offerings to the Fae and to the old ones. And I loved that. And I think because I am right in the middle of the forest where I live now, that will be something that I engage in this year's hanging something shiny and beautiful reverently from one of the trees at the edge of my yard as a way of honoring the Fae and the old ones. I could talk about this Sabbath for another 20 minutes, but I will stop. Hopefully these areas give you some jumping off points if you are new to witchcraft, or if you are just refreshing yourself and observing and wanting to find meaningful ways to connect. You don't need to invest a great deal of money in order to have a real, lived, enjoyable, and fulfilling Beltane observance. You can connect with this Sabbath and leave offerings from found items and have a profound connection to this Sabbath. And I really want to encourage that, particularly this year for us, that we don't need to engage in over-consuming in order to observe authentically and powerfully. And I should add, as a final piece of information or wisdom around the Sabbath. If you do have a garden, or if you have a green thumb when you have a lot of plants in your home, it's a wonderful Sabbath to give some honor to that. And of course, with this being a fire Sabbath, to light a candle in honor for what you want to welcome in, what you want to see grow, and as a protective means as well, is a wonderful way to connect with the Sabbath. So, as always, my dears, I am sending you oceans of love, and I will, of course, see you in the next video. Blessed Beltane. Hail Lilith. Take care.